What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I wanted to put this in the beginning. Of course, we are coming to you live from Gotham Production Studios, which is our home here for X Drinking Buddy. Remember to subscribe on Patreon, patreon.com/Brennan Tassif. You can also follow on social media at X Drinking Buddy on Instagram, Twitter, and follow me at Brennan T Comedy on all social media. Check out BrennanTComedy.com for the upcoming shows. And don't forget to get your X Drinking Buddy merch. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Boom. That's it. Easy peasy.
Grab me a beer and grab me a coke. We about to sit for an hour, bullshit and tell jokes. And please don't mix it up, cause he done sobered up. Brennan T Comedy on your social media feeds. And Brennan Tassif is your ex drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex drinking buddy.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Brennan Tassif is your X Drinking Buddy. I'm your host, Brennan Tassif. If you're new to the program, quick rundown of the show. I used to be everyone's favorite drinking buddy. It was my favorite thing to do. Hang out with friends, get drunk, do drugs, get in all sorts of trouble, and then reminisce about those crazy stories. I am sober now, but it's still one of my favorite things to do. Hang out with somebody and reminisce about the crazy old days. Most weeks I'll be joined by a guest. This week is no exception. All the way from New York City, Justin Randall.
Hey, what's
up,
up, guys? Not much.
How are you?
I'm great. I wore my Dare shirt.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
How old is that shirt?
It's not that old to me. I bought it like 2 years ago on Amazon. Well, I was like not sober at the time. I was like, maybe it was like a last ditch effort to see if the shirt would help. It didn't.
It didn't.
But you know what else didn't help was the Dare program,
Yeah,
which
that's
I
true.
had in my elementary
Yeah,
school.
me too.
Yeah, that doesn't do shit.
It's interesting. It actually helped me.
It did?
At the time. I was so anti drugs and alcohol until like late into my senior year of high school.
Oh my God, literally same.
Really?
No, oh yeah, I was like a crusader.
That's
I like abandoned.
yeah. You
friends.
brought this up.
Yeah,
so we
I
needed,
was very Christian.
Yeah. So before we get into anything, plug everything up front. Instagram. This will come out Monday for everybody, wide release. So any shows you have coming up, let everybody know where they can find you.
At I'm Justin Randall, letter I, letter M on every what do you call it?
Social media platform?
Social media site. Yeah. I have a show tonight, but it's too late for that.
It's too late. You missed it. It was a great show.
It'll be a great show. Sure. It'll be a very gay show. Yeah. I mean, it's literally a gay show. Everyone on it's gay. So.
Well, I want to talk to you because we just met outside, but through a mutual friend, Drew Tessier, friend of this show. I produce his other show, Drew's Mostly Queer Comedy Show, which you were on. And then Drew, whenever Drew has a guest on that has any sort of shady and or checkered past when it comes to drugs and alcohol, he immediately will text me and be like, hey, you need to have this person on your show.
That's so funny.
And so that's kind of how we got introduced.
What a strange pipeline to exist.
Yeah, it's very odd because Drew's show, other than the occasional ally, is, the queer comedy scene.
Sure.
Which is something, obviously, I'm not plugged into as much as I hang out with Drew and as many shows as I do with him and all that kind of stuff. It's just not something.
They're not booking you on that circuit.
Yeah, I'm just not getting booked on that, which I don't at Brennan T Comedy, DM me.
There you go. You should have worn the tank top.
I know.
Yeah.
I had a tank top on all morning.
That's how you get that crowd in there. Yeah.
We had Jeremy Crittenden on the show, and he was talking about like the social media and like the thirst traps and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, "How did that blow up?" He goes, "Oh, I just started posting pictures of me half naked, and then all of a sudden,
So sex sells, baby.
Oh, they love it. Mm-hmm. People love it. So for you, that's how you and I got introduced, and then I wanted to have you on the show, and then we were talking outside. You have a very interesting kind of journey into now. You are now sober.
Yes.
But then also even comedy growing up, because you had told me outside, you were like, yeah, during the pandemic, me and my best friend had a podcast about growing up Christian. And I was just like, oh, interesting. And you were like, no, like super
very
crusading type of Christian. Yeah. So let's get into it. How, kind of the origin story, like how, because now you're a gay artist in New York. Where did you grow up? Like, how did that pivot happen?
I grew up in Kansas.
Okay.
Yeah, like in a suburb a little outside of Kansas City. And we were like very, we were non-denominational. I don't know if you know what that means.
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
were Christian, but not Catholic. But,
Yeah,
just
there's a mega church back home.
It's kind of like a no man's land for Christian fundamentalism. Because you don't have an umbrella denomination, kind of. Anyway, so.
You have nothing to keep you in check.
Yeah.
You just have the Bible and that's it.
Yeah, the Bible in your heart and whatever comes to mind. And so my parents, God bless them. My parents and I have had a journey too. We're doing great now, but
good.
Just as, religious as they come.
Yeah.
And so I then, I kind of realized I was gay.
When did that happen?
That I realized I was gay?
Yeah. I'm assuming it was before you told anybody.
Testosterone entered my body during puberty and sexual attraction became a thing. I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
So, I had to figure something out.
So I just a little bit of backstory because the little details I'm always obsessed with. So are you going to church 2 times a week, 5 times a week? Like what's the whole, from, as young as you can remember until you hit puberty, are you just in it? You're down for the cause?
Well, as young as I can remember till about 8th or 9th grade, I was going 2 times a week, with my family.
Yeah.
But what happened is I made a switch around 9th grade where I became hyper religious. I became more religious than my parents.
Really?
Yeah, I was the golden boy because, I think I was trying to overcompensate.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also hoping maybe if I become Christian enough, I won't like dudes anymore, which is actually deeply tragic. We laugh now.
But that was actually, in all honesty, that was something that went through your head where you're if I just pray hard enough.
I was praying to not be gay. And so maybe I didn't consciously map it out, but it was this is all I got.
Yeah.
I got to try this. But I also then had some, it's so fucking.
I know, but it's true. I mean, literally you're telling your story. That is what happened.
That's what happened. Yeah, totally. And so then I but then I had some real spiritual experiences. I started volunteering at a Christian camp. So then I was at the Christian camp most of the summer because I was a volunteer. And I had some higher power moments that I still think might have been valid in some way, but it was through this lens of fundamentalist Christianity where it's wrong.
And this is 10th grade, 11th grade?
Yeah, 10th, 11th. And so then...
did you have a girlfriend in high school or anything at this time?
I kind of always had a girlfriend is the thing. I was one of the gays that really found a cover story.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I had a girlfriend through college until after college.
What?
Yeah, and we were banging.
What?
Yeah, I did the bit, baby.
Gotta commit to the bit, I guess.
You gotta commit to the bit.
Were you playing sports or anything like that? Were you a theater kid?
I wouldn't go that far. No, I did. I played sports until 8th grade, and then I quit basketball to play Romeo in the school play. I had to make a decision.
Wherefore art thou Romeo?
Yeah, I killed it too.
Yeah,
but
and yourself.
Yeah, and almost. Yeah. Well, Romeo. I have a joke about that. Yeah.
There you go.
It was really bad conditioning for me to I was already suicidal, and then I kill myself in front of everyone, and they stand up and clap. I was like, you're really sending the wrong message.
I have a whole bit about that where I did a one-man show, and I invited most of the comedy scene in New York that I know, and only 3 people showed up. And I'm I'm too vain for suicide because if only 3 people show up to my funeral, I'm going to be the fuck is this?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you got to get the numbers up.
I gotta at least make it to where people would be he was gonna blow up. He was just about to be a star.
Yeah,
and
I'm
not
think
there
about
yet.
what they're gonna say on the podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you do Romeo. You quit sports. You do Romeo. You're gay, you're gay, but you're trying to bash your way through it with this fundamentalism.
Yeah, and so then I became just really the most Christian kid in the school. I started leading the Bible study at school.
Was that a common thing?
Which part? Bible studies at school?
Yeah, in Kansas.
Kind of, maybe. I don't know. It's a good question. Remember? Did you ever hear about See You at the Pole?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
well, I grew up in the South, so it was a big in Florida. It was a big thing. Yeah.
I think it was kind of an offshoot of that. We were what if we did this every week?
Yeah.
And so we did.
Yeah, and we would always pray before football games and stuff. It was a separate thing.
Yeah.
But everyone went we would all get in a circle on a knee, and then everyone would come in.
90% of people are some degree of Christian.
Yeah, exactly.
Sort of just
especially
assume.
in the South.
Yes.
Yeah. So you start, and this is interesting because you brought this up outside, but I really want to get into this. we were talking about the DARE program and stuff like that, and you had mentioned that you lost friends in high school. Like, you not lost them, you basically banished them.
I did.
Because they got into drugs and alcohol and stuff
drinking.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was like, but the weird thing is that I think that I was already a freaking alcoholic.
Yeah.
It's like, and I had never taken a drink. And so it was like the fact that they got to engage in this thing that deep down I wanted release from my mind
100%
so bad, and they were getting to have it and I wasn't. I mean, my parents never drank a drop of alcohol in front of me, totally a dry home. And so yeah, I think I like kind of just resented them, but I had this religious thing going on too where it made it really easy to like judge them.
Yeah, to justify it and be like,
yeah,
you're
evil.
Shall not pass.
Yeah, it's so dumb.
So how old are you? Like, we're talking about, obviously this is in high school, but how old are you when you're like making that decision of, I can no longer associate with you? And are these close friends? Are these friends from like theater? Are these friends from school?
Some of them were like, yeah, it was friends from school. One of them was like a friend from church camp who then went into the drinking crowd.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I like
so
the
like
drinking crowd. I mean, he was like the drinking crowd. Well, he became a popular kid. And I was like,
of course!
God damn it. So I'm not drinking.
There's a straight line trajectory.
I was like the Christian theater kid, which is like but somehow I was still kind of popular. I don't want to brag, but I was on homecoming court.
Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, where there's a will, there's a way. I was juggling a lot of things at once, but dude, high school is brutal.
Oh,
do you ever just think about
how
we don't?
It's the worst.
Yeah, I feel that. We don't have you don't have any tools,
Yeah.
like emotional
At
regulation tools, and it's like the most evil environment you're ever gonna be in.
I remember my dad because I would get bullied relentlessly. I didn't hit my growth spurt till I was a senior. So I was like 5'6",
Your
like
voice hadn't changed?
200 pounds, high squeaky voice. Like, it was bad.
Oh no!
And I even though I was on the football team, like, I'd get
you have such like a deep voice and a
Yeah.
beard now.
Yeah, it's a whole overcompensation.
Yeah.
But I used to get the shit kicked out of me all the time. And I remember my dad, like, we barely ever talked about it because in my growing up, I just didn't really talk about anything with my family.
Sure. Who would?
I would. Yeah. Well, and I was more of an introvert anyway. But I remember one time I brought it up, and my dad, being from the Midwest and being like, a ragtag kind of guy, you know, his father was an original Green Beret. He was like, you just have to stand up for yourself.
Again?
It's
it's Peace Corps?
Special Forces.
Oh, sorry.
Like the
well,
highest,
like beret makes me think
yeah, I know. You're like beret.
Yeah, we're not fighting.
But he was like, you have to stand up for yourself. If you stand up to yourself to the bullies, they'll leave you alone.
Yeah.
And that logic checks out because later I did use that logic when I got to college. But in high school, I tried it. And I remember a senior, this is when I was a junior, like pushed me. And he was a smaller guy.
Yeah.
But he played on the defense, and I slammed him into a locker. And I was like, don't mess with me. And the entire starting defense came in and just kicked the shit out of me. And I remember being like, standing up for yourself doesn't make any sense. This is so stupid.
You never trusted your dad again, basically. You like literally took his advice.
Well, yeah. But then when I got to college and I had hit my growth spurt and I was actually somewhat intimidating looking, then when I would stand up for myself, people would just back off.
Right.
But in high school, they were like, no, your nickname's Fatty Tatty. Like, we know you're.
Tell me it wasn't.
It was.
Fatty Tatty. What's the Tatty?
My last name is Tassif.
Oh.
So my brother's nickname in high school was Massive Tassif. And he's smaller than me.
You got Fatty Tatty.
So I walked in my freshman year into the entire varsity locker room and I was like, attention all, my nickname too will be Massive Tassif. And one dude looked at me and he went, nah, man, you're Fatty Tatty. And it stuck all 4 years.
Dude, you had a rougher time than me.
You can't create your own nickname. It's not allowed.
No, yeah, it's really like, it's bait.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
And so back to you're popular, you're on the homecoming court, but you're still living in this kind of shell of
humanity.
Yeah, well, of Christianity and of like, this is my life. So this is interesting to me because obviously the kids, like you said, who started drinking and stuff became popular.
Yeah.
So you were still popular even though you were incredibly religious and everything like that. How did that coalesce with each other? Like, how was that a thing?
I don't know.
Was it a different group of friends or just people hanging out?
Well, I was popular because I was like the star theater boy.
Okay.
So I was like the lead in a lot of the plays.
Yeah.
The school would have to come see all the plays. Like,
oh yeah, you have to.
School.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think I just like put my like social ambition on a 10.
Yeah.
It was like all overcompensation, which like, isn't it still? We're all just trying to survive here.
That's why we get on stage in front of strangers.
Literally that.
Look at me, look at me, look at me.
Yeah, laugh at me. If you don't laugh at me, I'll die. So, I don't know. I was creating a persona.
Yeah.
It was not true to who I was. And really dug myself a hole because now I'm like I'm like the mega church pastor who is banging gay hookers on the side, except I wasn't a pastor and I was not having sex. But it's the same thing. It's like you're like pinning yourself as this figure of like morality, and
I didn't even think about
measuring up to this standard. So I kind of felt like a hypocrite the whole time.
I didn't even think about that though. You're not, because you're playing this caricature of like super religious.
Yeah.
You're not having sex, so you don't even have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that just clicked in my head when you said that.
Part.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then it was like, so I didn't have to worry about like hooking up with girls. You mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was saving
that's exactly what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, but then it was like,
so what happens your senior year?
How long can this go on? You can't do that till you're 40.
No.
There's a movie about that.
When you feel boobs and they feel like sand.
Yeah, that was like gonna be me.
Yeah.
So
what happens your senior year? You said you didn't start drinking like me until late.
No, then I drank my first year of college.
Okay. So where did you go to college?
I went to first I went to a community college for 2 years. Then I went to like a liberal arts college in Columbia, Missouri.
Okay.
That's like a big acting school.
So
called Stevens College.
The first 2 years of community college, is that when you drank?
Yes.
That first year?
Yeah, like second semester.
So what happened? Because this is it's not like, oh, everyone in my family drinks or I was at a high school party. Like this is, you've entrenched yourself in this modus operandi of like, I'm this person.
Yeah.
What happens to trigger you to be like, I'm going to try it?
I started out college still as like the Christian boy. Like I remember I was on full acting scholarship. I mean, it was a community college, but
hey,
I got cast in a play and I like refused to say the F word in the play. That's like,
really?
Yes. So, but then I took an astronomy course, like my first or second semester of college. And that
big mistake.
That shit blew my mind. It like single-handedly deconstructed my whole faith.
Wow.
Yeah.
One astronomy course.
It was just like astronomy 101. And I was like, oh my God, the universe is really big. Like so big. And like maybe life isn't as simple as I thought it was. And like the pieces started falling apart.
It was built on a house of cards.
Yes, it was. It was not meant to withstand science. I'll say that much.
You saw one Neil deGrasse Tyson YouTube video and you're like, it's over, pack it up.
Yeah, science is kind of the antidote to,
all of it.
bullshit.
Yeah. So you take this class.
Yeah.
And then you said it wasn't until your second semester. So did you take this class and you were still like trying to grasp at straws or hold on? Or
grasping at straws is a great way to put it. And I'm like, what is going on? And then, it might have been the end of my first semester because it was winter.
Okay.
So it was like a winter cast party.
I love that you know this. Yeah, take us through
I
it.
just
what happened?
remember, how your body like remembers the air and the lighting.
Oh,
at
yeah.
the little points of your time. Yeah. So it was like cold and I was at this cool chick's house. She was like a bad girl.
Yeah.
And she was older than me because it was community
Slut.
college. So
Yeah.
Yeah. And she like smoked menthol cigarettes out of her purse and like she was just so cool. And we were at her house and she
the
she
whole
drank
cast.
She drank a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole cast. And she was just like, I think if you get drunk, you should get drunk at my house so that like at least you have people keeping eyes on you. And I was like, boom, done.
That
Literally,
logic is sound.
Yes, exactly. And you don't have to convince me anymore because I'm dying inside.
Yeah.
And so like it was off to the races, as they say, from that first drink, baby.
So what happens? You take that first drink and because I've had conversations with this with a lot of people in recovery or who have been sober and now are not sober. But it's a lot of us have the same kind of feeling where, and I have the same exact one where I obviously suffer from anxiety and depression and all that stuff. That's how I got all the scars.
Sure.
And I remember taking that first shot and being like, oh, I get it. I get it. Yeah. I know why everyone does this. This is awesome.
Oh my God.
Did you have that same experience?
Literally that. And I always talk about when I talk about this story, like I obviously got drunk.
Yeah.
So it didn't stop at one drink, but like I went into the bathroom and looked in the mirror. And I was like, I like exhaled for the first time in my fucking life. And I was like, oh my God, I feel okay in my body. And then there's like a bunch of straight guys at the party. And I had the conscious thought, like, I feel like I can go out and talk to these straight guys now.
Oh, wow.
Because I had so much fear around straight guys because I was pretending to be one and I wasn't. So like alcohol was like, it was the magic bullet. It was superpower.
I say it all the time. The first time I ever got drunk, I just remember looking up being like, what is this magical elixir?
Magic elixir, literally.
I felt so good.
Which, to be fair, like it still kind of is.
No, it is.
Yeah.
But I take it to a point now where I just can't.
There's consequences.
I cannot stop.
Yeah.
Like, and that's a weird thing about being an addict that in my experience I've learned is the fact that it's like, it doesn't matter what, like I'm like that with energy drinks now.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, you don't need it. Like you have plenty of energy naturally. Like you don't need it, but it'll be like 11 o'clock at night and I'll be at home and I'm like, well, I want to stay up and play my game.
Yeah.
And to do that, I need to be sipping on something.
Yeah.
So I'll just crack open like a Celsius and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like you don't need to do. But it's that same kind of thing I was with booze. I would have a handle and if it got to halfway, I would have to go buy another handle to be like, okay, I'm okay.
Of it running out. Yeah. Or it's like you order a drink at the bar and you're already tracking the bartender.
Yeah, for another one,
But you haven't had a drink of the first one yet. Yeah.
So what happened? So you have that first drink, and you set off to the races? So you just like, I'm gonna party now?
As much as I could, whenever I could.
Were you still trying to maintain this Christian, person?
That's a good question. I think it's like kind of a little bit, but not. That's a little fuzzy. I think the next couple years I was like in the deconstructing process, so I was just kind of unsure.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think
are you living at home?
I was living at home this first couple years.
That's that's interesting to me because you said community college, and more normally when people are going to community college, they're living at home.
Yeah.
So take us through, like, are you hiding it from your parents? Or you
My mom, but my parents are like, they're like fundamentalists and we're very strict and very conservative, but they're also like old fashioned. So like once I was 18, they were like, we're not tracking you. You don't have a curfew. I would come home at like 5 a.m. They wouldn't ever mention anything about it.
Wow, really?
I was an adult now.
Yeah.
I just happened to be living in their house. But at one point my mom found like, remember those jugs of wine? Was it? No, it wasn't Franzia's.
I was just about to say Franzia.
But it was like Carlo Rossi.
Yeah. I know which one you're talking about. Because we use them for cooking at the restaurant. We've got like jugs of them everywhere.
Yeah, I didn't use them for cooking. And so I had like a full jug of wine. Well, it probably wasn't full, but it was at one point. And it was under my bed in my bedroom. And my mom found it. It's actually amazing. I haven't thought about this in maybe a decade.
That's what the podcast is for.
So yeah, my mom like came up to me and said, I found this jug of wine under your bed. Like, I just want to talk. Like, do you have a problem? Do you think you might have a problem? This was years and years before I ever and I was
like, not yet, Mom, but just wait a couple years.
I was like, no, oh my God, it's just cheaper.
The blood of Christ, Mother.
Yeah, exactly. Nightly communion. But it was just saving money,
And did she buy it?
She at least pretended to. She dropped it.
So she wasn't. That's interesting to me. So because when you say your parents were strict, I think hellfire and brimstone. But then you said when you turned 18, they kind of were pretty lax.
Is they also didn't drink at all. So like there's a naivete there that I think plays a
very
factor.
true.
It was like maybe she really did buy it. She doesn't know really how drinking works.
Yeah.
She probably hadn't drank in 20 years at that point.
Yeah.
And so. Yeah, I was just like, no, I just drink it with friends. It's social. And also I'm an addict, so I am a famous bullshitter.
Yeah.
Well, and I also was closeted and an actor, but closeted for like 23 years. So you want to talk about a bullshitter.
Yeah.
I mean, every like gesture, every syllable, every voice intonation was being
all mapped out
by my mind. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I couldn't give myself away. So, I took right to addiction.
Yeah. So she wasn't. The thing I'm thinking about, though, is like she didn't find it and be like, get this poison out of our house. What's wrong with you? Like yelling and screaming and stuff.
Strangely, no. And
that's interesting. See, that's interesting to me because of the fact that they were
I might be getting the timeline wrong because I'm now thinking that maybe I was 21 at this point and I was like home from college.
Got it.
And had it because I don't think she would have been okay with me drinking underage.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But regardless,
She still found it.
It was college,
just,
and
yeah.
there was a jug of wine under my bed, which is a red flag.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I mean,
I used to hide
crazy.
bottles everywhere around the house.
Yeah.
Like into my late 20s.
Me too. Well, into my when I got sober. I got sober the first time at 26, and I was, like drinking like a fish in my room, and I had roommates, and I couldn't be lugging wine bottles out all night.
So you were a wine guy?
I was wine and I was whiskey, pretty much. At home. Wine and whiskey at home, and then out like a lot of tequila.
Okay. Because it's interesting because as an alcoholic, people are always like, oh, you're an alcoholic, you'll drink anything. And I'm like, yeah, to a point.
Yeah.
But also as an alcoholic, I'm very creative in like getting my booze.
Yeah.
So I'll get the booze that I want to, like at least it might not be the best vodka, but I like vodka, so I'll get vodka. And before that, it was rum. I was a big rum guy in college. And it was.
I think I got really sick on rum.
It's a mess. There's so much sugar because I would get the spiced rum, and it's all made out of sugar cane.
Dude. Oh, I get like a body response.
Yeah, it was terrible. So you start drinking in college. That kind of falls by the wayside as far as you being super Christian and things like that. You kind of start to deconstruct that over the next couple of years. When did you come out?
I came out.
Was that way later?
Yeah, sort of.
Oh,
I mean, I had like a. Then I.
You said you had a girlfriend.
I transferred schools. It was an all-women's school because it was, and they have like a big theater program. So they put like they were giving like 10 guys per year a pretty good scholarship. Yeah. Because you have to have guys for plays. Yeah. Yes. Everyone knows you have to have guys for plays. It's 2024.
You don't have to anymore.
That's right. But it wasn't then, and so. Then I was in an all-women's school, which is like the worst place to go for a closeted gay guy. I should have gone to an all-boys school. Yes. I would have been out in 1 second. But so yeah, I had a girlfriend, and we were together till after we graduated. So by that point, we were having sex, which is like a big thing, because I actually I was closeted, but I was also scared I was going to go to hell if I stuck it in. Isn't that funny? And then the moment I stuck it in, that belief evaporated. I was like, that doesn't feel true. I was like, this doesn't feel like a big deal.
This doesn't feel like a hell-worthy trespass.
No, yeah. It's like you got to believe your body.
Yeah.
And so that was gone.
How this might be too personal, and just stop me if it is.
I know where it's going.
How does that work?
How did I do it if I'm gay?
Well, I only ask because as someone with hyper anxiety, I carry Blue Chews in my backpack just in case my girlfriend wants to have sex because, like, I can't do it on a moment's notice because I freak out.
Well, I think I still have some residual anxiety because of all of my first sexual experiences were in that circumstance.
Yeah, so how does that, what's going through your head?
It's like, I mean, in general, there was a good amount of dry humping the leg first until I got hard.
Yeah.
And then,
Take it to the play-by-play.
And then you got to, once you get it in, it feels great.
Yeah.
And so that was really the thing.
Okay.
So you got to get to A to B. Once you're at B,
you're set.
You're sailing.
Okay.
But hopefully there's not a kink in the road where change position one too many times. It's gone, baby. It ain't coming back.
Oh, it's not coming back.
No.
I had that with my ex because she would just sometimes stop and be like, "Hey, why don't you do the X, Y, and Z?" And I'm like,
"You're like, well, now you've got my prefrontal cortex
it's over.
involved."
It's over.
I know.
Rack it up.
It's like surfing.
Yeah.
Well,
and it was interesting too because I was trying to do a joke about this, but it was kind of long-winded. But one of the reasons I liked drinking so much because it made my anxiety go away.
Yeah.
And in college, especially when I was playing college football, I could any girl that wanted to hook up, I was like, yeah, because your
testosterone was high.
Well, not even that. It was just like being drunk. That frontal cortex part that we're talking about was out of the equation.
Totally.
So my penis would just work.
Yeah.
And then
but that's a delicate balance because then you go
because sometimes that was the whole bit was like you become a makeshift alchemist and you're not too much, not too little. How do I get there?
Like Goldilocks.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
that might be the tag, Goldilocks.
Do it. That was. I mean, she's tasting them all.
Yeah.
But I was actually just gonna say that because you made me remember I was drunk all the time that I was hooking up with this girlfriend. So that probably helped too.
That helps
that
a lot.
took a lot of the pressure off.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm sure I'd never had sex with her if I wasn't drunk or
because your brain just gets in the way. Yeah. And then you do all that thinking, and that's not good for anybody.
Thinking about boobs, that'll kill the moment.
Gross.
Yeah. No, actually, she had great boobs. I kind of liked them. I might be a little bisexual. I really might be. Like, she was the one.
Exclusive.
Like, I got lucky for the, like, because I was having sex with a girl as a gay man. I did find a girl that I was, like, pretty attracted to.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
But maybe she was, like, grandfathered in from, like, my...
Your years of,
like, fake heterosexuality. And then, like, honestly, once I started... grandfathered in, and what every girl wants to hear.
Yeah.
Then I, God bless her, love her. But when I started hooking up with guys, which happened after I moved to New York.
That's what I want to, yeah.
It was like, there was no more girls.
So, how old are you when you moved to New York? Is it right after college?
Yeah.
You're like,
much.
I'm going to take on the big city and be an actor?
Well, I went back to Kansas City for like 6 months. I did a couple theater shows there in like the professional scene, and then saved up also money, and then moved to New York.
Were you ever working like a random job, or have you just been in the theater this whole time?
You mean like a side?
Yeah, like a side job, like a temp job,
pretty
or like a restaurant
much
job, or anything like
had
that.
a side
Okay.
survival job, but was
I love
also
how-
working in theater.
Just as artists, we're like, you mean a survival job?
Yeah, I know, right?
So for everyone out there working behind a desk, just know we hate it.
Yeah, sure.
I know you hate it.
We call
but
it. We just actually call it what it is, which is a survival.
Yeah,
job.
exactly.
That's what it is for everybody.
You're like, oh, it's my career. Nah, it's to put food on the table.
Yeah.
You hate it too.
Pay
Don't
rent.
worry.
Yeah.
Just move to New York. Come with us.
Yeah,
It'll be fun.
Jump in.
There's not
The
enough
water's
people in
terrible. Yeah.
So how did you? So you save up, you move to New York, and then
Yeah.
the rest is history. How did you get into stand-up? Just doing theater?
Sorta. I mean,
Like, how did you even find comedy?
Well, I had been doing theater for years, and like I would like leave and do a regional contract that auditioned out of New York, and was doing that, and then was like doing some small TV stuff, and then started doing improv at UCB.
Okay.
Well, like I took the classes.
Yeah.
I was not on a house team. That shit was hard to get on a house team. I mean, I never auditioned, but very competitive.
Yeah.
So I don't want to claim it with not having had it, but I did have an improv team. And then, you know, I always wanted to do stand-up, like deep down.
How
I
did
think
you
I always
find
wanted to
stand-up in
do.
the first place? Because I say this all the time. For us, it's our world. It's kind of our life.
Yeah.
But stand-up itself is a very niche thing.
Yeah.
So I always ask all my guests, how did you even find it? Through like Pandora or YouTube or like Instagram? Like, how did you even find stand-up?
You mean find like the art of
Yeah,
it, like
yeah.
people that I admire?
Yeah. Because take it from me, because my girlfriend's a civilian, and all her friends are like teachers and civilians and
Yeah.
stuff. So like a lot of times I'll mention stand-up and they'll be like, oh, I've never been to a show, or I've never seen, other than like a few clips on. Now with social media it's a little different, but like other than a few clips on social media, they don't watch
it's different
stand-up.
now with social media.
Yeah.
For sure.
So how did you even know about
I
stand-up?
don't- well, you know what? I guess like my favorite show growing up, the most formative show of my childhood was Seinfeld.
So-
I watched it with my dad. It
Yeah,
was
me
like
too.
the main bonding
Look
thing.
at us having so much in
look
common.
I know, right? Where are you from again?
Florida.
Oh, Florida. Yeah. I don't know what that is. That's the South, right?
Yeah.
Which is basically the Midwest. But yeah, we would watch Seinfeld like every single night, and
Every
then
night,
after it would
7:30.
be David Letterman.
Oh, okay.
And so I would watch his opening monologue, and then
So you got introduced to it at a young age.
very young age.
And
I
so in the
guess I
back of your
just
head,
always
you
knew about it.
Yeah, and you always wanted to try it.
Yeah.
So you do the UCB improv classes, and then you decide like I'm gonna get on stage.
Yeah, and then
by
I
myself.
actually had a friend in sobriety who was stand up. I don't know that he does comedy anymore, but he was like cooking. He
Yeah.
was doing really good. And he like told me how to start. He was like, you want to write 5 minutes. You want to go to it. He like really laid it out practically for me, which helped so much. He was like, write a 5-minute set, go to a mic, do the 5 minutes, and then cut the jokes that bomb basically, but like any joke that works 80% of the time, keep, and then just keep condensing and cutting until you have a 5-minute set that works 80% of the time. And just go to mics and do that. And I took that advice and I did it.
That's so smart.
Yeah. And then within like, you know, I don't know how, I have no idea. It could have been 6 months or whatever, but I really had like a 5-minute set that I felt confident about.
Yeah.
And so if someone asked me to be on their bar show, I could.
You were like,
I
rock
at
and
least
roll,
had
let's do it.
5 really
Yeah.
solid minutes. Yeah.
So you mentioned it, sobriety, the elephant in the room, as it were.
Right.
So when, because the listeners have heard my journey. We were talking about it a little outside. So you're welcome, listeners. I could spare you going over it again. We
There you
talked
go.
about it outside. So for you, obviously drinking in college and then drinking through college, when did you realize, like, I might have to slow this down, if not cut it out completely?
Oh, Well, dude, I probably knew I think I knew I was kind of an alcoholic from like the first month of drinking.
Okay.
I don't know that I used that word, but I knew that like I was fucking obsessed with it, and the people around me didn't seem as obsessed with it as me.
Yeah.
Because it was always like, need more, need to do it again soon.
Yeah.
Pretty much the only thing I cared about. But it was years before I really started like looking at it. I got to New York and I went to therapy finally.
Yeah.
Thank God. And was like starting to come out of the closet.
Mm-hmm.
And
oh, so this all, because you had mentioned that earlier, this all kind of happened at the same time.
yeah. Well, oh God.
You moved to New York, you go into therapy.
I moved to New York
then...
in 2013, came out in like 2014, and got sober the first time in 2016.
Okay.
So I was in therapy for like 2 or 3 years while I was like showing up hungover as fuck every time.
Yeah.
Like I would like wake and bake, and so then I would be like at therapy like maybe a little high. But
maybe a little. You're like, I would wake up and
do.
smoke weed, and then you're like, maybe I was a little high.
But I didn't smoke a lot. I didn't get like blitzed.
Yeah, you didn't
because
get
I was
completely
just
baked.
trying to get like a lift.
Yeah.
So I had like
I used to do
in the morning.
shots for breakfast.
Oh hell yeah!
And I joke because it's interesting you bring up the whole
shots for breakfast.
Yeah,
just
so
a
it's
straight shot.
Yeah, so what would happen is I come from a heavy drinking family. We're Eastern European. It's well documented. Everyone in my family likes to drink, but everyone in my family always had something that was more important than drinking, be it their job, their family, whatever it was.
Got it.
So I wouldn't label, and also, according to the super secret program we're in, I'm not supposed to call anybody an alcoholic. That's their journey to figure out for themselves.
Right.
Page 189. But
in giant air quotes. Hey,
but,
it takes one to know one.
Yeah. But so when I was drinking a lot in college and stuff, so the thing I had was football. Football was more important.
Okay.
But then when I stopped playing football, going into like my junior year, I had nothing that was more important anymore. So drinking became the most important thing to me.
Yeah.
And even then, I went to my first meeting at like 21 or 22. Like I knew something was wrong, and I remember crying at my first meeting, being like, "I can't stop. I don't know what to do." Wow. And then I just went out and got drunk after because I was like 22.
Yeah, sure.
But I say all that to say, like, I never every time I'd go to a meeting, I'd be like, "Oh, I'm not like that. I'm not like that. That hasn't happened." Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of kept going.
You were a little you weren't ready.
No, I just wasn't ready. But my whole thing was, by the time it got kind of really bad, is I would have 2 or 3 shot glasses out, and I would fill those up, and then I would have. At this point, I switched to vodka because rum was just too bad. Like the hangovers were just too harsh. So then I would have the shots out, and then what I would do is I would have a water bottle, and I'd put a little bit of Gatorade powder in it, and then I would shake it up. I would drink half of that and be like, I got my electrolytes, I'm hydrated, and then I would fill that half that I just drank with vodka. So that was my chaser. And a lot of times what would end up happening is
Wait, you chase the water, the Gatorade with vodka?
Yeah. Well, no. So I would chase the shots with a mixed drink, basically.
Oh, okay.
So it would be like a water bottle that was half vodka, half Gatorade. And then I would use that to chase the shots. But what always inevitably would happen is I would pass out on the couch, and then I would wake up, and it would be like 6:37 in the morning. And because I would always pour 3 shots because of my anxiety. I always wanted to make sure I had shots ready.
Yeah.
And there would always inevitably be 1 or 2 of those shot glasses still filled from when I passed out at like 2 in the morning.
Sure.
So I would just bang the warm vodka.
Yeah.
And that's how I would be able to get out of.
Avoid the shakes.
Yeah. That's.
Herod the dog.
Oh, you had to. So you're doing a one-hitter. I'm doing shots. Tomato.
Totally. Yeah.
It's the same.
It's the same. I mean, it was like I'm not going to go through my day sober.
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
Gross.
Yeah. And so, but then
And you said this was going on for years. A couple of years?
Years. Oh, yeah. I was like high for like 2 years.
Yeah.
Like my first 2 years in New York. I mean, I did like everything.
And you were still going out drinking and stuff?
My restaurant job. What's that?
Were you still going out drinking?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so it wasn't just weed. Like
and I would always be like, if I was really drunk, I like needed to smoke some weed because it sobered me up, which is like crazy.
I don't think that's how that works.
Most people are like gives them the spins, but I was like, no, like it really like clears my mind.
Yeah.
And Anyway. God, my nose is so stuffy. Sorry.
It's okay. So that was just your life. You were working odd jobs, doing the theater stuff, going to therapy, getting high, doing everything.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, there's like not a night that I went where I wasn't getting drunk. And then like if I was drunk out, I would pick something up on the way home to keep drinking. And, I just like, I had like a moment of awareness where I had like booked a little role on like a Discovery ID show or something, or actually no, it was like a big role. And so this was like, I was doing the thing that I moved to New York City to do.
Yeah.
Like my dream.
Here we go.
And the whole fucking time I couldn't wait to be done so I could go drink. And I
Isn't-
was like,
isn't that the worst?
Something is not right here.
Something is amiss.
Yeah, this is not adding up.
That's the worst, is when you get, because I remember that even when I was playing college, I was like, I'm a Division I college football player.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't drink all the time.
Right.
But I remember, like, I was like, I cannot wait.
Oh my God,
for
the
Friday.
obsession of the mind.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or I cannot wait for Saturday night, or I cannot wait because our days off were Wednesday. It's like, I cannot wait for Tuesday.
Miserable.
So I could go out Tuesday night and we could all get drunk.
Oh my God. It's
Like-
like white knuckling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because I was like, I can't drink.
Dude.
Like, my day's too packed. And then by the time I got home after 2 days and classes and stuff, I was so tired that I would just pass out.
Yeah.
But in my head, I was like, I cannot wait.
Oh yeah.
And it's, to your point, it's like you're doing the thing that you've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I can't
And you
fucking
care.
wait to
You
get out of
actually
here.
care about it, but
Yeah.
you just don't care about it as much.
Yep.
So, because nothing can really compete.
Yeah.
Is the thing. So then I like. It's really hard to, in my experience, go to therapy every week and remain in denial because it's like there's nothing.
That's
you're
what they're
just
looking
sitting
for.
across from a person
Yeah.
talking about your truth. So eventually, it was like, I think I might. Is it crazy if I'm an alcoholic? He was like, no, that's not crazy for you to think that. And then he like brought me a list of AA meetings. Oh, cut that.
We're living in it.
Jesus. And then,
Super secret
right.
meetings.
yeah, super secret meetings. I am not a representative of the program. I'm just a person who went. So then, yeah, there you go. Then I got sober.
But that's what I wanted to ask. So, because my journey has been well documented, realized I have a serious problem. I call my mom crying.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Oklahoma City at the time. I lived there for like 3 months with my cousin. It's a long story. But she goes, pull out your insurance card, because I was only like 24 at the time, so I was still on my dad's insurance. She goes, pull out your insurance card,
The good old days.
flip it over.
Yeah.
And she goes, there's a mental health number on the back there. It's on every insurance card. And I said,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, I see it. She goes, hang up the phone with me, call that number.
Wow.
And I did, and I was in rehab within like 24 hours.
Wow.
So for you, and that was kind of like a bang, bang, bang kind of a thing.
Yeah.
For you, it seems like it was more of a long game.
Wow.
Just in the sense that, like, you
I
brought
didn't-
it up in therapy, and then you get a list of
Oh,
these
yeah.
meetings, and then you have to decide what to go to, and then...
Yeah, and then I like stood outside of the meeting for like 30 minutes on the corner looking around because like no one could see me go into this unmarked building.
Yeah.
Heaven forbid. And then
In New York City, God.
yeah, right. Where there's hundreds of people and no one cares about me. And then I darted in.
I'm
and-
so the same way.
Yeah.
I'm like, everybody's watching.
Everyone's watching.
Nobody's watching.
No one cares. And also you're going to a meeting where everyone has the same issue.
Yeah.
So they're not judging you. But I didn't know that. And then like they called on me and I was like, this is my first meeting. And they all clapped. And
When they ask, is anyone here for their first meeting, you raise your hand?
no, I actually didn't even raise my hand. My
Oh,
one
really?
requirement for going to that meeting was that I, like with my therapist, I was like, I don't want to talk. I
Yeah.
don't want to talk. And then it was what they call like a pitch style meeting. So whoever shared last just picks on the next person by
Yeah.
pointing at them. And someone pointed at my ass
Okay.
like over halfway through the meeting. And I was like, motherfucker. Yeah. So then I said, this is my first meeting and they all clapped and I didn't expect that. And then
What was going through your head when you shared? Because like I said, my very first meeting, I raised my hand and I immediately started crying.
yeah.
Were you very emotional? Like, what was happening? Were you hungover?
I don't know. I think I have had a tendency of like really emotional, intense moments. I like dissociate.
Yeah. Well, and also as an
not to
actor,
brag, yeah.
But as an actor, you've probably gotten fairly.
Kind of like a poker face sort of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. Sort of like a.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to cry in the scene. I'm not going to cry in the scene.
I like
My
have a
name is Justin.
presentational
Yeah,
quality.
exactly.
Yes, that's definitely true.
So you shared, they all clap.
Yeah.
And then are you like,
I,
oh, this is for
turned
me?
my expectations on their head because
Yeah.
I really thought they were going to be like, boo, shame. You've never been to a
Shame,
meeting.
shame,
You suck.
shame.
Yeah. And then people like gave me their numbers afterwards. And yeah, I like jumped in.
Yeah.
And I was sober for 5.5 years.
That's what. Yeah. So we got to it.
Yeah, we
Thank
did.
you everybody for sticking with us because this is where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
So you were sober for 5.5 years.
Uh-huh.
And we started talking about this outside, and I was like, no, save it for the podcast.
Yeah.
So what happens? Are you living?
Yeah.
I just want to know, are you living your absolute best life sober? Are you like, oh, this is better than my wildest dreams. I can't believe it, blah, blah, blah.
I had times where I was living my best life.
Yeah.
In that 5.5
Well, that's what I
years.
mean, because it's not going to always.
Yeah, but I had like gone, I have like done all of the comedy I've ever done. I've been sober for. I started comedy and sobriety, all that. But I had gone through a breakup. And I hate telling this story because it really sounds like bullshit. But it's not, and so I can't just like make up a fake alternate version of the story.
Yeah.
It sounds more realistic because the timing is suspect. But I had just gone through like a really bad breakup. Oh my God, like world crushing, at least for my crazy ass.
Yeah.
And,
How long were you together?
I don't know, like a year if you count all the breakups.
Well, that's 10 years and
gay years. Yeah, you got that right. Jesus, and it was just like we were so trauma bonded because we had like broken up and gotten back together so many times.
Oh yeah,
so
love it.
Like, yeah, the intensity was
like
an 11.
The passion. Oh
yeah, it was crazy. And I'm an addict.
I love you. I hate you.
Yes.
Fuck you. Let's
get
back together.
I get addicted to that.
You get addicted to the chaos. I say it all the time.
To the dopamine from the sex and the love, heartache, and all that shit. So. Like I was really depressed though, like gonna kill myself.
It's the breakup is official. It's officially this is over.
Yes.
Okay.
He has. It was like I was trying to get back with him for like a 7th time after like breaking it off 6 other times because I historically psychotic and and he basically. I don't know how else to put it. I mean, ask any of my exes. And so then he like drew a hard line in the sand and it was donezo. And so then I was just like, oh my God, in withdrawal from this person basically. And then was really depressed. I went to rehab for depression.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And then the day after I got back from rehab, sorry if people just heard this on Drew's podcast that you talked about, I went on a grinder hookup. I walk in. I have not seen marijuana or been around it in 5.5 years. So it's like the only edibles I've ever seen in my life came in saran wrap from a guy on a bike. Right?
Yeah.
But I walk in.
Cookies, brownies, things like that.
Right. Very like homemade vibes.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And I've like have been away from the game for so long. I walk in and this guy like kind of speaks English as a second language. So there's a language barrier to start with. And he has this like beautiful shiny baggie that looks like it came off the shelves of Target.
Yeah.
Just like in his hand. He's like, do you want like some of this gummy? And I was like, what is that? And in my mind, I was like, that must be CBD because some people in the recovery program would still use CBD because it's not psychoactive. And I knew you could buy that at stores. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, it's CBD? He's like, yeah. I like clarified 2 or 3 times. I told him I was 5.5 years sober. He goes, just take like a little tiny piece of it. It'll help you relax. And I was like, I honestly was like, rather not have the conversation, shut up and just take it if it's CBD. What's the risk? Did not think twice about it.
So speaking of what's the risk?
Yeah. Well, now I know. But I was honestly like, remember how earlier I had talked about how my mom was like naive about alcohol because she hadn't ever drank. That's like kind of how I was because now I'm like 31 or 2. I have not drank or been around weed or any drugs in like 6 years.
Yeah.
I was like naive again. And
that I don't mean to cut you off, but that, and the listeners hate when I cut people off, but that does happen to me where people will be smoking their vapes.
Sure.
And they'll be like, oh, do you want some? And I'm like, oh, you're only offering this to me because there's drugs in it. And they go, yeah, it's you. But it's just very easy to be like, I remember when vapes didn't have weed in them.
100%.
And so like as a smoker and as someone who does a lot of nicotine, it is very easy to be like, oh, I need a nicotine fix. Give me your pen. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, so I just don't take anything from anybody.
Yeah.
But even at work.
I also like won't buy nicotine vapes from like a store that also sells weed.
Yeah.
It's too scary.
I only buy, now what I do is because I don't do vapes. I either smoke cigarettes or I use Zins because they're sealed and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, but even at work, like they'll make a mocktail. And sometimes it looks so much like a real cocktail that I'm like, not for me, but like for my guests. And I'm like, are you sure there's no booze in this?
Right.
And they're like, yeah. And I go, are you sure?
Right.
Because if this person is sober, you could ruin their lives
my God,
because
you're
you
telling
just as a
me.
bartender weren't thinking and accidentally put rum in it or
It's
something
no
like
joke.
that.
Yeah.
So for you don't want to have the conversation. You're like, whatever, if it's CBD, it's fine.
Yeah,
you pop
and I
it.
asked him, I literally said like 3 times and told him I was 5 years sober. And he's like, yeah. And so then I literally had like the size of like a fucking...
One of these little leaves?
Yeah, no, probably less, like half of that.
Wow.
I mean, but I know now it was then edible, so they're very potent.
Yeah.
So we
like 100 milligrams.
I don't even know enough about edibles anymore to tell you. But like, we hook up, and afterwards he's like, "Okay, you should start to feel it now." And I literally went, "Feel what?" We just talked about this, and he had like a weird spiral staircase for some reason in his Hell's Kitchen apartment. And I ran up the spiral staircase. It was very dramatic. And then I like look at the package, turned it around. It said THC. Yeah, like 14 billion milligrams.
Oh my God.
And
this is giving
I
me
was
anxiety.
like, this was 5.5 years of sobriety. Like truly going to meetings, like 4 or 5 meetings a week. Like,
Yeah.
What
is your immediate thought? Panic, obviously.
Just like, yes, like panic and confusion. Like really like couldn't
Why would you
even
do this to
believe
me?
what had happened. Yes. I like left immediately, probably angrily. But also, like I said, there was like a language barrier. So then I was like, oh, maybe he didn't know when I was saying CBD, which is an acronym, maybe he didn't really know what I was saying.
Yeah. It's got 3 letters. Yeah,
exactly. And so then I like called my sponsor. I talked to 2 other people from the program on the phone, and they're like,
they gave you a pass?
It's like a slip. Yeah. They're like, go to meetings, share about it. Don't do any more. But I'm like high off my ass at this point. Oh my God. I'm sailing to the moon on this edible, and I haven't had a mind altering chemical in my body.
Sailing
it felt,
away.
and I had been so depressed.
Yeah.
So it was
because of the breakup. Yeah, I forgot.
Oh, it was like, I feel amazing, and I have felt like shit for as long as I can remember because of this shit. And within 24 hours, I completely convinced myself that weed was the answer to my problems.
You decided to go California style.
Basically, I was like, it's legal now, and people prescribe it for mental health, and I clearly have mental health issues. So we're just gonna do weed. And
historically psychotic.
Yeah, historically psychotic. Any ex would be like, take an edible, motherfucker.
Yeah, relax.
Yeah, but it's the delusion of being an addict. Like, I started with just edibles. I texted my weed dealer from 6 years before, and they had edibles at my house within like 30 minutes.
You up?
Basically.
Long time.
I'm like, I cannot believe this number is still active, but they were, baby.
So, because I have drunk dreams still to this day, and I have 6 years in a couple of days, but I still have drunk dreams all the time. And I always am in like this panic when I wake up. Because I'm a lucid dreamer, so I will realize that I'm dreaming.
Like intentionally?
It's a long story,
okay,
but
we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, but so as a lucid dreamer, a lot of times I can realize I'm dreaming.
Yeah.
And then you can manipulate your dreams and wake yourself up and do all that kind of stuff. But there are times where the dream feels so real that I'll be like, I know I'm dreaming. And then it's like, but are you? And then my brain will start to, like, it's very meta. It's like on top, like it's very, what's that movie?
Inception.
It's very Inception, where it's like,
you need to take a totem into the dream.
Yeah. It's like, are you dreaming? Because you're pretty sure you're dreaming, but you've also relapsed a million times.
Sure.
So you could just be on a relapse thinking you're dreaming and you're going to wake up.
Yeah.
So like, that's, because when I was sober for that first year and then I relapsed, I remember, and I talk about this in my one-man show, but I remember doing that first shot.
Yeah.
And I didn't explode into a million pieces.
Sure.
I didn't immediately get a call from my sponsor being like, what's going on? I felt a disturbance in the force.
Yeah.
Like, none of that happened.
Yeah.
And so it was very easy for me to justify,
slide
like,
back into it.
Yeah, I'll keep this under control.
Sure.
So for you, that sounds kind of like similarly to what you were doing, where you're like, it's legal now, people prescribe it, like, I'll be fine.
It's just weed.
Yeah. And what ended up, because we don't want to get into too many of the details, but what was the point where it went from it's just weed to fuck?
Dude, I mean, it snowballed so quickly.
Yeah.
Which is probably like an accurate word to use. Yeah, it was like 2 weeks in. Yeah, 2 weeks in, I'm like, well, I'm high, so I might as well just have a drink. I'll just have a couple drinks.
Yeah. And
then it's like cocaine, and then it's like ketamine, and then it's GHB. It was just like, oh my God. I can't even, I look back on it and it's it's wild to me how quickly it went downhill. And it went downhill, honey. And then it was like 8 months of...
That's how long you were out?
Yeah. Like, just unbridled chaos.
Yeah.
And my friends, like... You know, they found out sort of what was going on.
Who's the Christian now?
Yeah, well, I really destroyed that image. Yeah, I was doing like,
So what ended up happening? Because I don't want to focus too much on the actual relapse itself.
Yeah.
What ended up happening where you were like, because obviously the second you start smoking weed, this is the one interesting thing. I don't want to say it's good or bad, but the interesting thing about going to meetings and being in this environment and being sober for any extended period of time, we now realize what's happening.
Yes.
From a purely logical standpoint, we're like, our brains are out to get us.
Totally.
This isn't right, but I'm going to keep doing it.
You know too much.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You've seen Behind the Curtain. You've seen, Oz in Whoville or whatever it is.
Right, yeah. Different stories, but I love that.
But, so for you, obviously this whole time, you're like, this is getting worse and worse and worse. What is the triggering event where you're like, I'm done. I got to stop? Because you're well past a year again now.
Yeah. Yes, I have like almost a year and 5 months sober.
Congratulations.
Now. Thank you so much. I really never thought it would happen. That's the thing.
Me
I
too.
was so deep in it that I knew I had no denial about the fact that I was an addict. And I actually was trying to stop pretty much the whole time, but I couldn't get like more than 10, 14 days away from it.
That was me, yeah. When I was telling you earlier.
It was like 15 to 20 relapses in that 8 months, which is so discouraging. Just literally to like the logical part of your brain, you start to
It gets frustrating.
You learn, okay, well, I can't get sober. Or at least that's what I thought I
learned. It's interesting you bring that up because I talk about this with my sponsor before, and I think I've mentioned it on the podcast. But so after that first year and I relapsed, like I said, I couldn't get more than like 2 or 3 months. And the only reason I could get that much time was because I had a fiance at the time who was like, you have to get sober. Because when we had met, I was in that first year of sobriety. And that's when we fell in love. And that's when everything was going well. Yeah. And then when I relapsed, she was a ride or die. She's like, I'm here. Like, we're going through this together. I don't give a shit. Like, I'm here for you.
Sure.
But then after the course of years of that, she was like, you can't stay sober.
Yeah.
And I remember during the time, and even after that time, because I've been with my current sponsor for almost a decade, I remember I would call him and I would be crying like, I have to fix this. Like, I have to get back in this. I remember the feeling of being sober. I just want that back. And we would do steps 1, 2, and 3, and I would get on my knees and I would pray and I would mean it. I would mean it with every fiber of my being.
Me too, dude.
And then 2 weeks later, I'd be drunk.
Yes.
And I remember... And him and I talk about this to this day where he was like, I didn't know if because of all the concussions from football, because of your anxiety and depression, I didn't know if mentally you had the capacity to get sober again. And that was terrifying.
I had my sponsor, because I got a new sponsor during all of this, who like specialized in what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And he was like telling some of my friends, Justin might die.
Yeah.
That's
and
what
it's a very real.
Which is, it was valid for him to say that. And it was true.
Yeah.
I almost did actually.
Yeah.
Really like, and even after like ODing and like almost dying, that kept me sober for like 28 days.
Yeah.
My guy. Yep. It was 28 days, but it was like,
if God wanted to kill me, he would have done it already. That was my big thing.
It was like nothing could happen.
Oh, I used to scream that from the rooftops. I would be like,
Really?
if God wanted me dead, I'd be dead.
Yeah.
But I'm still here, so I'm still going to do
Resilient.
it. It was like this fucking hero complex.
Yeah, I get that. That probably was part of it.
Yeah.
But then it was like I kept like asking my friend, what if I actually am dead? Are you sure? Am I actually alive? I'm like sometimes still like if I'm a little tired, I'm like, wait, what if this is all the afterlife? Anyway,
God, what a shitty afterlife.
That's a near-death experience for you.
Yeah.
Just make you constantly question whether you exist.
The reality of everything.
Yeah.
So what happened? What's the event that happens?
Basically, my friends formed, I call it a coup, and like got into a text message string together. And alerted my sister, she's like my ride or die.
Yeah.
She's like, I have 3 older siblings. She's right above me, and she's always been there for me. I came out to her like first or second, and they told her, and it was like the end of the road, baby.
She called?
Oh,
or
she
showed up?
called. And I didn't answer, but it was like, then she's like texting me like, why are you not answering my phone calls? This is wild. And I was literally like doing drugs with a guy. And I was like, dude, like killing the vibe. I'm killing the vibe. I was like, I'm about to have to like get sober.
I think I'm about to quit.
Yeah. I was like, I have to call my sister. She won't stop calling me and I have to tell her and I'm going to have to stop. And the guy I was using with referred me to the rehab I ended up going to. Yeah. He was like, there's a great rehab that specializes in this out in California. And
Is that where you went?
Yeah.
So
because then I called my sister. It was this like a really painful conversation.
Yeah.
And she's like, you have to keep trying. And that hadn't occurred to me.
Yeah.
I was like, I've failed so many times I might as well quit. But I was like, technically, I guess I could just keep trying. So we agreed I would go to rehab again. I'd already gone once for substances in this 8 months.
Oh, okay.
Yes, for 28 days, which was not.
Oh, that's when you almost died.
No, it's a different 28
Okay.
days. I was sober for 28 days twice, but never longer than that.
Yeah.
Literally. And so then I agreed.
It's so weird
to
you
go.
say 28 days.
Yeah.
When I was living in Oklahoma City for that brief period, my cousin was like, if you can stay sober for a month, I'll start booking you on shows. Because at the time I was doing stand-up, but I was just getting wasted and making an ass out of myself and him because he was vouching for me.
Oh, yeah.
And I made it 28 days as well.
Really?
And then started drinking. He goes, you only had 3 days left. And I go, I don't.
It's
That's
that,
actually
it's
when
that Sandra Bullock film. Isn't it called
28 days later?
It's about like a 28-day stay in rehab, I think.
Oh, is it?
Isn't it?
I don't know.
Or
I'm not
that's
up
a
on. I'm
zombie
not up on
movie.
Sandy's
No,
IMDb.
No, I think it's a Sandra Bullock rehab film. Anyway, I don't know. That is exactly 4 weeks. Maybe it's something psychological.
Oh, maybe, yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, it didn't. None of it felt conscious to me. It was just like I literally can't last any longer.
Yeah,
I have to.
I
go
have
get
to
high.
do this.
So
you go to California.
yeah, and I was there for like a year.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but like all the stages. I was like on campus and inpatient, and then I was like outpatient. And then I was intensive outpatient. Then I was like sober living and did 2 sessions a week. And so the whole thing averaged out to like a year.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And now you're on it. You're
And
doing
now I'm
it.
back, baby.
Back.
Back in the biz. Yeah.
Back in New York.
I was not doing comedy for like a couple years.
Yeah.
Because I was doing
Other things.
and then rehab.
Yeah.
And then now I'm back in New York and
We love
I'm
it.
sober and starting to get back into the comedy thing.
Love it. I did want to ask you, because we kind of went through the whole journey, which was fantastic.
We really did.
You found some stories that you didn't even remember you had.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, though, because this is something that there's 2 stories you sent me that I definitely want to touch on before you leave.
Oh, gosh.
The first one was the throwing up on a friend. Because those stories, you're not the first one. You won't be the last one that has a story
Really?
like that. Yeah.
I have tried doing this story on stage a few times, and I do find that I think audiences don't love hearing about vomit.
Yeah.
That is just my
Vomit and
experience.
suicide.
Yeah, I know. They're like, we can't handle that. It's too much. But I think it's a hilarious story because it really actually happened. So it was like the first time in college I had ever done hard liquor or done hard liquor. I'd never drank hard liquor. So they had it on the shelf in these little shot glasses. I did like 12 shots in like 15 minutes.
That's too much.
Because I loved the burn, but
Yeah.
I didn't have any mental associations with like hard liquor hangover. So there was like, my brain didn't know to warn me about what I was taking.
It wasn't like, stop, no.
I also, didn't know that there was a delayed effect.
Also, it's hilarious because the burn is your brain being like, don't do this.
Maybe so. Yeah. I was
That's
like,
exactly what it is.
yeah, but I like drank vinegar as a kid. I'm such an alcoholic. Yeah, I just wanted to feel intensity. I would do like vinegar shots in the kitchen. So, or like olive juice, just anything that like makes me feel terrible. So
Yeah.
I did like, I'm not exaggerating, 12 shots in 15 minutes.
I just picture like that, like Inside Out. I don't know
Yeah.
if you ever saw that
Yes.
movie.
Yeah.
But I love that movie, and I just picture the
they're
one
like,
control.
send the burning
Yeah.
sensation.
Burn.
Yeah.
We're doing it.
I think he likes it.
He won't stop.
Yeah, literally that. So then shame had to take over later, but and oh
Good
boy
call.
did it. So I then we like went out to dinner because it was my friend's 21st. I was not 21. It was my friend's 21st. We go out to dinner in public for her birthday, and I am like alcohol poisoning drunk.
Yeah.
Like talking to the waiter, like, hey, I'm 21 in a couple of months. And like, meanwhile, I'm like at the table, like clearly a minor drunk. It was
my
a
God.
nightmare. I like fell out of my chair. It hit my girlfriend in the face. And so then we get back in the car. It's the dead of winter.
I always forget you have a girlfriend in some of
Yeah,
these
I
stories.
know, right? It's like so sad. But we were great friends ultimately. So then we're like in the SUV and I'm in the back seat with another friend, and excuse me, Jesus Christ, I almost died last week.
You praise His glory.
Yeah, and so, oh my God, you're gonna have to
just go ahead.
God bless it. So then it's like really cold.
Yeah.
My friend is saying how
so you
cold
made it
she
through
is.
the dinner.
Yeah, somehow. I mean, that's debatable. What do you consider make it through? I was still alive.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And like
just
talking.
working, because I work at a swanky steakhouse in the city, and so we get a lot of like bachelor parties and stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a lot, like I have a buddy that comes in, and sometimes he brings some of his friends who cannot hang with him as far as drinking.
Yeah.
I had one of them where and Scott, you know what the fuck happened. He came in with his friends, and one of his friends was so drunk he threw up on our floor, like at the restaurant.
Yeah, well, that would have been me had we stayed like 10 more minutes.
Yeah, so what happens? You go outside, it's winter, it's cold.
And I'm in the back of the SUV with like another friend, a girl who's like saying, I'm cold, I'm cold, I'm cold. And I was like, well, you can lay your head in my lap. I'll keep you warm. So she goes, okay.
Not your girlfriend.
Not my girlfriend. Yeah, I know that's also a problem. And she like leans over, lays her head in my lap. Her like head hits my lap, and then I start throwing. I threw up onto her face and hair and head, and it was like.
And you're in an Uber.
No. We were in my friend's car.
Oh,
She's driving her SUV,
okay.
but that's almost worse because it's my friend's car. So then they're all like, she's like, you threw up on my head. And they like pull over into a parking lot.
Right into her head.
Onto her head. It was in her hair. She didn't talk to me for like a week. She was like viscerally mad. Because it was like, I guess it was that offensive.
Yeah,
how could it not be? And so then I'm the only one still in the car. They're all out because I've thrown up in the car, and I'm sitting there with throw up all over my mouth, and I'm denying that it happened.
What?
Yeah. I was like, I didn't do it. I did not throw up. But they're all like, just. So that was like the start of my drinking career.
You threw up.
Yeah, you threw up.
That's what they taught us in laws when I was doing pre-law classes. I took an international law class, and the first thing the professor said was, deny, 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 counter-accuse.
I love that.
So
yeah, well,
like...
yeah, tale as old as time, baby. It's the classics. Yeah, and then I was like, I'm walking home, and I started walking the wrong way. Yeah, it was really bad.
Oh my God, Justin,
like,
that's
it's in
insane.
my hair. It's in my hair. Oh my God, yeah.
The last thing I want to ask you about, because this is something that fascinates me. I've never done ketamine. I've heard a lot of stories about ketamine and K-holes and things like that.
I have some. No, I'm kidding. I don't. I'm kidding.
How you just wrote ketamine?
This story is maybe not that good, but
I'm just so interested in what happens.
Oh, ketamine's a weird drug because it's like, I call it like the video game drug, because it's like the only drug, it's called a dissociative technically, but it like it really makes you trip. You feel like you're tripping, but it is not a swirly trip. It is like boxy. It feels like a digital dissociation from reality.
Wow, really?
Yes. So like you have the sensation that you're falling, but it feels like you're like falling like levels of a building. It's very like,
that's so bizarre.
So weird. It is such.
Because I've done a lot of different stuff, but I've never done ketamine. And then I hear stories about people falling into K-holes and like living a life for like 3 years in this thing.
It kind of feels like alternate reality, but like video game style. That was my experience. I mean, I did it.
How long did it take?
Several times. But
how long did it feel like it was? And then when you came to, how long had it been?
I could say in general, I have no idea.
Oh, wow.
On any of the times. But I was also like on a lot of other stuff most of the time too. But this was the first time I ever did it. I was at like the Eagle, the gay bar. This was during my relapse. And a guy just like, or who knows, maybe I asked, but he like gave it to me in the bathroom. And then
you did ketamine?
No, that was the reverse though. It was a good joke, but that was like really where the story's going. Because then the next time I went to the bathroom, a guy like opens the stall from within and like just like waves me in, and I just like walk in a trance, and then he gave it to me, big time. But in my mind, it was like he was like Jack, like on the Titanic at the bottom of the staircase, like, here, come with me. But it was really like a drunk guy in a bathroom stall. But I felt like I was being like ushered in on like a red carpet. Very
this
romantic.
is my time. I have arrived.
Yeah, I mean, that's what ketamine does.
That's what it does.
Alternate life. Yeah.
Dude, this was so much fun.
Super fun.
Plug everything one more time.
Oh, I'm Justin Randall. And, you know, I'll post my shows on my stories usually on Instagram. So,
Beautiful.
yeah.
Thank you, everybody, so much for listening. At Brennan T. Comedy on all social media, BrennanTComedy.com. Check out the one-man show, Ex-Drinking Buddy, a comics look at life, near-death, recovery, and redemption. And we'll talk to y'all next week.
Bye.
Boom.